When it comes to my favorite segments, Hit the Deck, there's definitely a lot that I can choose from. First of all, I really enjoy just the regular old banter from Gary and James.
We want to hear from you. I don't know why I became Kennedy there. We want to hear from you. You know, maybe I have been hitting the mask too many times, James. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Chemistry between them is fantastic, and it makes listening to the podcast a real enjoyable experience. Plus, they're my friends, so it's great to hear them giving their opinions and sharing their great personalities.
And I really like what you guys did. I mean, there's plenty of hockey podcasts, but not a lot of people really talk about deck hockey and just sort of not the unsung heroes, but, just kind of the fun ins and outs of deck hockey.
I enjoy listening every week, and I hope all of you out there really do enjoy it because it's just a fantastic, insightful way to look at hockey and the whole deck hockey thing and street hockey, and show that, it's not just for kids. It's for adults, and we all really enjoy it, and it's just our way of showing our love for the game.
So, I mean, I've always, when you guys said you were doing it, I was actually really excited, and I listened to almost every episode almost.
As far as individual segments go, the ones that I've been on are obviously some of my favorites.
Brad, Mibuki, so good to have you back.
Yeah, we need you, buddy.
Yeah, we are always very happy when you grace us on the podcast.
But that definitely is a little biased by me.
I would be remiss if I did not say that episode 45, also known as the So Sue Us episode, was not my favorite episode of Hit the Deck.
Thank you, Sue. Welcome to the podcast.
For very obvious reasons.
I also really enjoyed the segment that Gary and James interviewed the fellow George who runs the Rockies street hockey tournament.
George Kornienko.
Because I know in the past we at the LIQ have thought about hosting our own tournament because there's not many of them around. So, hell, why don't we host our own? And George really outlined some of the logistics of what goes into that and some of the problems that might come up.
It's like anything else you ever do with anybody trying to do any kind of endeavor. You realize the first time you try to do something is always one of the hardest.
Yeah,
because you have to get it off the ground. And then, like anything else in life, you try to learn from your mistakes.
It was just a really informative interview, and I kind of go back to that one sometimes because I really would like to participate in the Rockies tournament again. We have no idea when that might be, but hopefully soon enough.
I mean, every year it's somebody new, and they say, geez, what a good time. We can't wait to come back. And I think that's important to hold on to that.
Some of my other segments seem to be, strangely enough, goalie-based.
I really like the episode we did together because it was just really fun for me to talk about hockey and deck hockey and I really enjoyed just sort of the round table you and me had with James talking about kind of the goaltending and how we approach things and how we look at things.
The interview that really consisted mostly of Gary and Mike talking about the inner workings of the goaltender.
Try zip ties because not only will it hold it in place, but then it gives you a gigantic claw.
I will take that under advisement. Thank you, Mike.
Then I'm really one step away from being some kind of slasher villain.
Nice.
That was a great one because it really informed me as someone who rarely plays a position. I mean, sometimes I got to fill in because you do what you got to do.
That was really cool. That was really insightful for me just to sort of kind of go behind your mask, so to say, and just sort of see, the philosophy and the psychology of how you approach it.
It sort of just gave some background info on what goalies go through and how they pick their style and how they react to different situations. I thought it was really just insightful and informative and great for anyone who doesn't play the position of goalie to hear, but also as a sort of vindication for goalies everywhere of, yes, you're all going through the same thing.
It's a very you against the world mentality. And when you do well, you think, I did this. When you do bad, it's like, I ruined everything.
Right.
My favorite episode name that you had was the Skeletorial Hit the Deck episode. Just because I think that may be my new favorite word of all time. And I think you should try and work that into every podcast, in some way, shape, or form.
Skeletorial.
I also really enjoyed the episodes you did with Brad, especially his breakdowns. He would break down plays and all that.
What are you trying to do here, Brad?
You basically take a peek at the goalie while taking one quick last look at the puck to make sure it's still on your stick, and you just look for a hole.
The enjoyment with that was a sort of a personal thing just because, I've known Brad now for almost 15 years or longer, just about. So I've seen sort of the many sides of Brad. I've seen Brad, the high school student, Brad, the musician. Brad, this and that and that. But it wasn't until fairly recently that I got to see Brad, the hockey player. And, it was just such an eye-opening thing when we first started playing together, just to be like, oh my God, he's that good? I mean, and we'd gone to hockey games and he would always say, oh, well, see what he's doing there, see what he's doing there. He was very good about explaining what was happening at a game in person, but to really see him and hear him break down a play that he was a part of, it was just sort of like it was kind of pulling back the curtain a little bit. You know what I mean? It was just, for me, as a very, not lifelong, but as a very long friend of Brad, that was really cool to see. Kind of see that side of him in its entirety, to see him break down and, to kind of hear sort of the mental play-by-play of what he was doing when he was coming in and he was going around James to make a shot on you.
If you have the distance to make the pass across and set up a one-timer, that's your first option there. Otherwise, then you have to kind of go to backup plans. Either stop the play completely and then try to set up for something different, or take a shot.
That was pretty cool. That's a side that I very rarely get to see. And I think it was a cool thing in general, because I think most people look at deck hockey and it's like, everyone just chases the ball around and then once they get it, they make a shot. And, I think the idea is that deck hockey is like super amateur and it's just the guys that can't skate and could never make it as roller hockey players or even the lowest beer league player. So the idea is that there's no real strategy. It's just get the puck and shoot. But, I mean, clearly that showed that, at least in terms of Brad, and there's plenty of other people, there's definite strategy going on. And there's all the many thoughts that you say, oh, well, look at what a regular hockey player on a breakaway, all the thoughts that go through his mind. You could see that, at least with, Brad, when he was breaking those plays down, those are still very much a part of even the deck hockey game, which was really cool.
Another one of my favorite segments, and I apologize, Gary, because it seemed like you were emotionally distressed during this particular one, but a couple of weeks back, Gary was talking about just the emotional toll that being a goalie can take on him and how, he wasn't sure if he was up to it.
I'm really starting to wonder if it might be time to take off the pads.
No.
Which, during the last game that we played, Gary made some crazy Dominic Hasek-like save, so I got to say that he's definitely still up to it and has many years ahead of him. But just hearing the emotional toll that it takes on someone was really just eye-opening for me, because I know some of our goalies, whether it be Gary or Mike or Craig, have complained in the past that everyone says to them, oh, you shouldn't be so mad. You shouldn't be mad that you lost a game. It's just a game. We're just friends. But I think it all falls down to the whole aspect of when you're a goaltender, your job is to stop the puck. And anytime you are unable to do a job that's expected of you, that can create some emotional distress.
If the puck gets past me, I have failed in my job. My job is to stop the puck. My job is not to try my best. It's not to say, they beat me with a great shot. Got to tip my cap to them. And it's definitely not to blame my defense. It is a binary, either I stop it or I don't. And if I don't, then I have let down my team and it is my fault.
And Gary obviously internalizes his, which, Gary, I hope you're doing okay. But some of our other goalies can take it out on the posts or throw a little bit of a temper tantrum or yell or scream or get aggravated at the defenseman. And then later on they have to apologize for what they did, but in the heat of the moment, that distress comes out in a way maybe they didn't intend or in a way that they did intend to motivate their players. So it gave me some background of, you know what, I'm going to take my goaltender's mental differences from the rest of us and understand them and not be like, oh, you shouldn't be so angry next time. It's just a game, and just understand their personality and what they're going through. And rather than criticize them for what they're doing, support them. Give them the mental support they need. And I know I've done that for my goaltenders in the past, and I've seen James doing a lot for Gary, just to keep the morale up, because it's not an easy thing to do. So to you goalies out there, my props to you for doing what you do. And I know I fill in once in a while, but I don't consider myself a goalie because I don't think I have the mindset for it. So on that note, hopefully, Gary, your mental anguish that comes with being a goaltender is not too bad. And I will say it does not show very often during the podcast. You guys are very happy-go-lucky.
But in all seriousness, I actually really enjoyed the episode that came before mine, episode 44, where Gary, James, Mike, and Brad discussed the NHL top 100 players of all time.
I don't think he should be on this list, but
He
that's going to be...
Well,
There's a couple people that I think that
It
should be on.
I know I got quite a hockey education listening to that podcast, and it was incredibly enlightening and interesting to listen to the four of you go back and forth about your picks and why and what you agreed with and disagreed with. And I did agree with a lot of what you said. I didn't agree with some of what you said, but it was an incredibly entertaining podcast.
You know, anytime you get 3 or 4 or 5 guys sitting around talking about great players or, you know, the top 100, who belongs, who doesn't, whatever. I mean, who's the best goaltender, who are the top 5, 10, however you want to break it down. Whenever you have those conversations, to me, they're always fun. You know, like I was a history major. I'm becoming a social studies teacher. So like a favorite thing is sort of like, you know, for history teachers, you play the what if game. And I think that like that's kind of a similar thing is we just talk about players and who would translate from one era to another. You know, if you brought back, I don't know, Jacques Plante, how would he do today? Versus if you took Johnny Bauer and you brought him today. You know, I mean, I'm just trying to pull off names off the top of my head, and I'm not making a specific case and either way. But it's just like that's a fun conversation, and just to listen to it, I thought was great. You know, I really liked that a lot.
So again, that was probably my favorite Hit the Deck episode to date. And I have to say, and this is more of a personal anecdote, after the NHL Top 100 podcast, my second favorite podcast was definitely the WWE Royal Rumble podcast.
The champion check down.
For those listeners who probably do not know, Gary, James, and I kind of make it an annual tradition to go to Gary's house and watch the WWE Royal Rumble together. So that was a lot of fun to listen to you guys do that.
Oh, and the goon has jumped over the boards and immediately been clotheslined back over the boards. Oh, that was a very short showing.
Maybe I can get in on it next year and do my picks as well.
It was an old episode. You guys did something where you talked about the best hockey movies. I forgot which one was Goon. It should have been on the best hockey movies, right?
And then just for a couple of other movies that are worth checking out, one is Goon.
Goon's a great movie. Not the best Mel Wait, but Goon's pretty fun.
And then, of course, you know, this goes without saying, but any episode that you have Julia on.
I think it's great because I root for my favorite team.
Your beautiful daughter also brings a very large smile to my face as I'm listening to the podcast. So more Julia, please, if possible.
Da-da-da-da and a la-la-la.
So keep at it, guys.
Just keep it up. I can't wait for 50 more episodes. I can't wait for episode 100, because just to think of what you guys will talk about from 50 to 100, and then all the nonsense and ridiculous fun that will happen at episode 100 should be pretty fun. Congratulations on 50 episodes. Hopefully we got 250 more.
Here's to 1,000 more. Happy 50th.